So my buddy invited me to a meetup. It was about 3 landscapers, and we met up at a restaurant and just had to talk about our business and exchange some ideas. I've been in the business this is my 5th season I just completed. My buddy, he's in it. I think he just completed his third or 4th season. And then the other cat he's slowly getting out of the lawn care business after 15 seasons. So we got different perspectives. Now I charge each service. I charge for each service. My buddy does a mixture of each service and monthly. And the experienced landscaper that's been in it for 15 years, that's getting out of the game, he was charging per month. So when he bids a job, he'll say it'll be $150 for the month, or $180, or $200, or $300 for the month. And what that entails is weekly service. But whether it's a 5-week service, a 4-week service, a rainy day delay, right? Or you don't get service that week for whatever reason, maybe it's a holiday, you're still paying the same amount for that month. So what that guarantees for him is a consistent paycheck and consistent income year round, even in the winter. So that's cool. I mean, in retrospect, hindsight, that's pretty cool. Because mine was cool about charging per services. Like, it's just that, it's cool charging per service. You getting bread all month long, right? But it is a little hard to gauge because certain days you get paid more than others. And certain weeks you might make more than others, especially if you allow bi-weekly, which with me, bi-weekly accounts for about 80% of my business. But the experienced dude, he does weekly only and he charges by the month. So that was interesting. He said he was doing about $10,000 a month in reoccurring service, but he was working 6 days a week by himself to make 120 grand a year. All right, no time. No, he takes time off, but he doesn't take an off season. Right, that's year round, regular mowing, edging, spraying the beds, and some light bush maintenance. So that's the way he structured his business. But he said after 15 years, he was just over it. It was taxing on his body. And he never got to the point where he could really trust someone else to be able to do the work that he's doing. He said for him to replace himself and get out of the truck, it would take 2 guys, because he usually works from sun up to sundown, 5 to 6 days a week on average. And he has a very tight route, and that's why he's able to do, cheaper costs. Like his cost is pretty cheap to the client, like around like $37-40 a cut. These aren't big properties at all, but still $37-40 a cut, and densely populated. Route density was real tight on his route. So for example, he can do about 6 houses in a certain neighborhood in less than an hour and some change. Like an hour and a half, he's doing 6 houses. That's how tight his route is, and as small as properties are. So he's getting like $37.50 on average a cut. $150 a month. Whatever the case is, he's making about 10 G's a month, but sun up to sundown for sure. So I asked him, have you tried like hiring? And he said, yeah, he tried, but it's just the level of detail. He just couldn't trust anybody to keep up with that. Even though it's weekly, it's kind of, you get on a routine. He just couldn't find anyone he didn't trust anyone to be able to take it over and to treat his. It's a lot that goes into it because he's so seasoned. He knows, like, he's not beating his equipment up as much, so his costs and maintenance is down. His truck maintenance is down because he has such a tight route. He's not taking a ton of breaks during the day. He's able to work sun up to sundown. He knows how to pace himself. But one of the things he was saying is that if he hired, he would need 2 people to take over his route. And if he were to do that, the math in his head, he says he would have to pay them about $8,000 a month, which would only leave him with about $2,000 a month that he's making off of his routes. And he's doing about 75 customers. So he's thinking he could only profit about 20%. I don't know what his overhead is. I know it's low, but he feels he's going to have to pay out about $8,000 a month to find 2 guys that could take over his route. So I've done like, mine fluctuates for sure because I only have 3. He's doing 6 days of reoccurring work. I only have 3 days of reoccurring work each week, and then Thursday is open and Friday is open for like whatever comes in. Maybe a cleanup, or one of my customers want a mulch job, or aeration, or overseeding, or maybe some bush trimming that's not in their routine maintenance, something outside of the general scope of work. So I usually leave, and this is not, I didn't plan it this way, but I kind of dropped like my far, because when I first got in the game, I was using Google and Craigslist to get most of my customers, and it had me going pretty far out from my neighborhood that I want to be in. But as I got into it, I realized I need to drop some of these neighborhoods. So I dropped like 2 days this past year, and I wasn't able to fill them back up with reoccurring work. So I just been focusing on like upsells and just taking cleanups. Like, I'm gonna just do some cleanups on my days I don't have reoccurring work, and it's been pretty cool. It's been pretty cool. I know people don't really like cleanups, but I don't mind it, and I've come to a point where I'm able to charge a bit more and make it work for my situation. So when I do a 10G month, albeit, I'm still in the field, right? So I don't know the math of him being in the field, how much it would cost him to have help and make it a little easier, but I got to the point where I was so beat up because we're push mowing. My body got so beat up that I had to hire some help a few days a week, a couple days a week. And with that, like I was saying, with hiring help, I'm able to get my work done. We're usually spending about 20% on help. So like my $10,000 or $11,000 month, I'm usually spending like 2 G's for help, just to help me out. If I were to have help fully take over, I think I would have to spend about double that, at least like 40%, 30 to 40% on of my income on my help. So in my head, I figure if I can get it up to like 15, this route up to like 15 G's a month, and spend about 10,000 on help, then I can walk away with like 5,000. That's not even being in the truck. And why that's okay with me is because, and that's a goal for me, is because I'm leaving the state of California in about 3 or 4 years, Lord willing. I'll be moving to either Texas or South Carolina. And I'm like, do I sell my business? Do I close my business? Do I sell my route? or do I, try to manage it out of state and work it like that? If I do try to manage it out of state, I think that's the route. That's the way to go. It's like, all right, try to build them up to a $15,000 route, preferably like 2 routes, but at least one route, $15,000 a month. Pay my employees about $10,000 or $8,000 to $10,000 to run it, and then about $2,000 for overhead. So I should be walking away with like maybe $3,000 to $5,000 a month just with coming in to like manage and do the admin on that route out of state. And it's probably going to be a lot easier for me than it was for him, just because I do a lot. I already do a lot online. I'm not waiting for checks in the mail. I don't know. We'll see. We're going to find out. So that's why I'm more willing to experiment, just so I can get the data. Like, okay, if I do have 2 people in the truck, this is how it would look. This is what the cost would be. This is what's not going to work, right? Go through trial and error to figure out what's not going to work, to figure out what may work. So I got 3 years to figure it out, maybe even less, to figure things out. One good thing is that when I move out of state, Lord willing, I'm able to sell my current house, and the equity from my current house will be a large portion of the cost of my next house out of state, right? So my mortgage is not going to be as high, and maybe it won't be existing at all. So my cost of living should go down significantly. So I won't need as much. So a couple thousand coming in, slightly passive income would help. And then as I build my route in wherever state I move, either Texas or South Carolina. What he was saying, if I moved to Texas, he was like, man, if you were to do that, he said, I would try to find a way to commute. He said 16-hour drive, you should maybe work 3 hours a week out here. 3 days a week out here, and then 3 days a week out in Texas while you build your route, so you can guarantee this one, your main thing is still the main thing while you build your route in Texas. He's like, until you build that up to an efficient amount, then you can fully switch over or sell this route. So what he ended up doing was selling his route. He pieced it off though. So he would sell one day to one landscaper for about 10 G's. The other day he sold for 10 G's. The third day he sold for like 16 G's. And then I think he hung on to one day as he transitioned. I think he's doing like pool maintenance now. So he was able to sell his routes. The one he sold to my buddy, he made a deal like, all right, if you don't have the 10 G's up front, just work my route that day and you'll pay me. I'll still collect the payments until you've paid me an equivalent of 10 G's, and then you fully take over. And that worked for them. It worked for them. So that's also something to consider. I could sell it off right, or, piece it off, or have somebody take over it and I collect the payments until they pay me off for the route. And so for example, a $500 a day, like say on Mondays I make $500 or $600 for Mondays, or using his example, he made like $500 for a Monday every Monday, but he sold, or let's say $2,000 for the month, right? He has a Monday that makes $2,000 for the month. He sold that Monday to one landscaper for 10 G's, and they either paid him up front or they kind of slowly just took over the route, and he collected the payments until the 10 G's was paid off. And he said that was better for him than to throw somebody in the truck, throw 2 people in the truck and make 2 G's a month after expenses, but with the risk of them losing customers, not doing a good job. He'd rather just get it all in one chunk and put that money towards his new venture or new business. So total, he got about $36,000 off of his 3 days that he sold. And he was able to roll that into his new venture, his new business. Instead of like $2,000 a month, having 2 employees doing it, doing $2,000 a month and getting that over the course of 3 years, with the risk of them. I guess he got some trust issues. He don't think anybody could really work it as hard as he does. But it is, he is super, super efficient, and he thinks it's hard for somebody to take over to that capacity. So it was a good meetup, man. I'm glad I met the cat. I'm glad my buddy invited me. It was good to see his perspective on a few things and run the numbers and see, what my numbers look like to people in my actual area, not just random folks on YouTube that's doing $300,000 in a truck by themselves on a zero turn. Right, I forgot to get some numbers from the cats in my market, so that was cool. But yeah, let me get to cutting. I got a few yards today. We still cutting. Cali, come to Cali. You get to cut all year.